Hey and welcome to the MX-5 guide on Oulton Park International in iRacing. This track is very long and very difficult, so when you practice it just for a little bit, you will immediately notice some gains in your races. Even in top splits, the times are up to 4 or 5 seconds apart from each other. I think last season the leaders were driving low 54s and the back of the field was driving 58s. So as you can see, there's plenty of time to gain, and every improvement you make will net you something in your races. So just go out there, practice and crush the next week. We are heading into a high-speed turn, that's why it's important that you stick to the very far left edge of the track. Use the banner on the left side as marker for braking, hit the brakes and shift down into third gear. We want to carry as much speed as possible onto the next straight, and that's why you want to be back on the throttle before you reach the curb. Attack the curb and aim for a wide exit. Races are long and sometimes you will run wide here. Don't shy away from taking the incident point, it's way better than lifting and trying to keep the car inbound, because when you lift you will not only lose time, when there are cars around you, all those cars will stack up on the entry into the next turn and it will lead to a very spicy situation which you want to avoid. So just stay on the throttle when you go wide, take the X1 and focus on the next turns. We are heading into another high-speed turn which leads us onto a straight. That means that we want to go for a wide line again to carry our speed onto the straight. Stick to the right edge of the track, and our brake marker is the short drop that's laying ahead of us. Simply hit the brakes when you reach it, shift down into third gear and aim for a smooth line. As we get deeper into the turn, we drive into a second drop. Coast over the crest, focus on your line and lead the car back to the inside of the turn. You want to use this second drop as acceleration marker and get back on the throttle immediately after you pass the crest. Keep engaging the throttle as you push the car further and further to the inside of the track. And this is the sweet spot which you want to hit. You want to be right on the curb and go flat out as you accelerate towards the exit. When you are right on the curb, it will lead you to a safe exit which doesn't let you go wide and you won't get this nasty incident point on the outside. Should you hit a bad entry or go wide for any other reason, then you can simply correct your line by dropping the throttle input by roughly 10 or 20%, and this will allow you to push the car back inside onto the curb, and when you reach the curb, you can go flat out again. It's tempting to go flat out through the next turn, but we want to use it to get a good entry into the upcoming hairpin, and that's why you want to lift when you reach the pathway on the right side. Lifting allows you to exit this turn on the far left edge of the track, and that's how you set the car up for a wide entry into the next hairpin. Get back on the throttle, but keep pushing the car to the left edge of the track. There are two brake markers which you can use for the next hairpin. Number 1 is the tire wall on the left side of the track, and number 2 are the patterns on the tarmac. Personally, I'm using the patterns on the surface to find my braking point, because then I don't have to look across the whole screen when I want to look at the apex, and the whole turn feels a bit more natural. You want to go hard on the brakes and shift all the way down into first gear. Aim for a tight line around the apex, and as you can see here, I'm immediately back on the throttle. This is a crucial point here, and I'm not doing it because I want a fast exit. The main purpose of it is to stabilize the car. Your rear will be a bit unstable as you shift down and enter the turn, and by giving the throttle a soft touch, you will push the car into the banking of the turn, which gives you more grip, and your rear will suddenly feel stable again. We are heading into the spicy chicane, and I'm using the white marks on the surface of the track as marker for braking. They were more pronounced in the past, but they are still visible, and you want to brake shortly before you reach them. Be smooth on the brakes, shift down into second gear, and aim for a tight entry around the first barrier. Fully attack the curb, and when you reach the first barrier on the left side of the track, then that's the point where you want to be fully done with braking and transition into the exit of the chicane. When you can't hit the exit or struggle with understeer, then you should have a look into your replay and check your brake inputs right at this point. You are most likely overdriving the car on the entry, still heavy on the brakes, which pushes the load of the car to the front, which creates the understeer. So just take it easy, brake a bit earlier, and you will have a bit more space to breathe. We are heading onto a long straight, and you know the drill. We want to be back on the throttle. Ideally, we want to engage it before we reach the next barrier. Attack the exit, you can even go a bit wide here. As long as you don't drive beyond the width of the upcoming curb, you won't receive an incident point. Approach the next chicane on the far left edge of the track and hit the brakes when you are about halfway between the 100 and 50 meter boards. This chicane is a bit slower than the last one, which means that you can be a bit more bold on the entry and aim for a tighter line around the barrier. Gently touch the throttle as you transition into the left-hander and aim for the upcoming curb. Lift as you turn into the left-hander and try to aim for a tight run around the barrier again. Another straight is coming up, and that's why you want to push the car to the left edge of the track to get a wide entry. This is another spot which you should check in your replays, because it's a quite common mistake to position the car further towards the center of the track, but then you can't carry that much speed onto the straight and you can easily lose up to 4 or 5 tenths. Attack the throttle, attack the curb, and stay aware of what's happening with your car, because sometimes the rear wheel can hook into the curb, like it happened to me, and you will need to counter steer on the exit. It's not ideal when it happens and costs you at least a tenth, but I want to show you that you don't need to be afraid of it. Just hold your wheel tight, attack the throttle, and keep pushing onto the straight. We are back with a quick jump into the next braking zone. Here you want to push the car to the left edge of the track again, because we are heading into a high-speed turn. I'm using the marks on the surface of the track as marker again. When you look closely, you can see how the track is transitioning from a darker tone towards a more lighter grey, and that's the point where you want to hit the brakes and quickly shift down into third gear. Aim for a tight run around the first apex, but you don't need to be on this curb here. We want to aim for the second curb and aim for an aggressive exit. When you are about halfway between both curbs, you want to go flat out again. And when you did everything correctly, then you will feel a hard shake in your wheel as you drive across this curb. This curb is also a great indicator which gives you feedback about the upcoming exit. When you can feel it shaking your wheel, then it usually means that you can stay on the throttle and you won't go wide on the exit. When you miss it, then you need to stay aware, because you might need to lift to avoid going wide and into the grass. We are heading into the last turn, and there are a few possible markers here. You can use the board we just passed, you can use one of the trees on the left side, or, and that's what I'm doing, you can use the subtle kink in the white line to find your braking point. I know that it's barely noticeable, but after driving a few laps around here, you will know that it's there and you will develop a feeling for it. Go hard on the brakes, attack the inside curb and try to be early on the throttle again to accelerate towards the finish line. Now, I didn't drive a race here yet because the car just changed this season, but in my practice runs, it didn't feel like there's a difference in pace between using the first and the second gear here. The first gear allows you to have a sharper apex and be a bit more aggressive with the car, while the second gear allows you to follow a smoother line, but you need to be a bit more careful with your throttle inputs because it's easy to go wide on the exit. Simply try both and stick with the one you feel more confident with. That was the guide lap. The cockpit lap is coming up next. Please don't forget to leave a like when you enjoyed the video. I wish you all the best for the next week and see you next time.